Welcome to another episode of DD on the Spot. As always, I'm your host, Ryan Johnson. And before we get into it with our guests here today, I'd like to remind everyone that if you enjoy this content, to please give a like and subscribe down below. I'd greatly appreciate it. We have Mandy Harbin on the podcast. She's coming to us all the way from Alabama, where, yeah, she might be our first guest ever from Alabama. I haven't checked, but we're getting the states done. But she's a bodybuilding pro on to share her health and fitness journey with us and really talk all things health and fitness. And most importantly, she's our current guest. Mandy, thank you so much for coming on.
You're welcome. Thank you for having me.
Well, I got to ask first of all, because, I love torturing myself. What is the weather like in Alabama today?
It is cloudy, rainy, but 50. Better than the 28 degrees we had a couple of weeks ago and better than the 80 degrees we had in February.
Yeah, she was telling me about that. So with everyone concerned about, how cold it got down there. Yeah, like she said, 28 degrees, but it was negative 32 here was the lowest that it hit. And it is 36 degrees right now. So this is the first day since probably I think early November that we had that was above freezing. So, this is streaking weather basically in Minnesota. So I'm going to go have fun, once I'm done doing this podcast, because this is the one day that you can really go out and stuff. But yeah, yeah, that is amazing. But before we get into that, because I'm getting a little too happy now because of talking about the weather. I'm used to being just so depressed during this time of year, but just taking one look at you and then taking one look at me, it brings me down a notch to where I should be, normally and naturally. But why don't you give us your backstory first off on what really inspired and motivated you to get in shape and how that led to where you're currently at right now, bodybuilding? And I know that you just won your pro card a little while back, so why don't you just tell us all about that?
Yes. When I moved to Alabama 4 years ago, July, well, it will be. I was one of those. I'm a mom, so I had kids, and I would just kind of do the lunch break thing. You go on your lunch break and do a quick 30-minute thing, like interval training. No weights really. So I called myself skinny fat, but kind of without the fat. So I was just really skinny. But when I moved here, my current husband, he's a big guy, and big as in muscular. And I didn't ask to go to the gym with him or anything. He just started going, and he had a friend come over, and he was like, his friend said, "Hey, have you ever thought about bodybuilding?" And I was like, "No, that's a guy's thing, right?" And he was like, "No." He was like, "Research this." So this was in um 2018, at the beginning of 2018. And so I started digging into it a little bit, and I was like, okay, I'm going to start going to the gym and just see what happens. So I started going, 2 or 3 days a week, and my husband would show me what to do at the gym because I didn't know how to even use equipment. And so he would show me, and then I kind of fell in love with lifting. It was like a stress relief. It was an outlet for me. It was a time to have a little peace away. My kids were there in the playroom, but it was like you put your headphones on and you get in your zone. And so, anyways, I really fell in love with it, and by April of 2018, I decided that I was going to go full force and start prepping for a show. So, and then I did a show in July of 2018.
Wow. So when you were getting started in the sport, were there any myths that you had about the sport or anything that you were concerned about? Because everyone seems to, especially when bodybuilding comes to term, they always have to, have that myth of oh, I'm going to get so big, or, oh, they're just all this, myths that people have about it. Was there anything that you were concerned about, or was it one thing where you wanted to just take a full dive in the pool and you said, I'm good to go?
It's more the latter. So my thing is when, and I didn't really realize this till I started bodybuilding, but when I commit to something, I commit to it 100%. And even though I was more nervous about like not knowing when you get to the competition what's at like I like to be prepared for things, and there's no getting prepared. You don't see your competition, you don't know who you're competing against, you just got to take what you got. So I did go like full force into it. And a lot of people will say, how do you stay so motivated? And honestly, I'm so hard on myself, I keep myself motivated.
Well, and that's you have to have that mindset if you're a part of this lifestyle, because that is just one thing that yeah, I cannot stress enough is that you need to be self-motivated, because yeah, if you're just relying on someone else to motivate you, or if you're just relying on something else, some other extremity, yeah, it's not going to bode as well. But were you always a figure or a physique competitor? Or did you start off in bikini, or was that something that you always, just said, I'm going to be figure or physique?
So my first show that I did in 2018, my prep actually was during my honeymoon and my wedding. So we went to an all-inclusive resort on a week of my prep, and of course, it's my honeymoon. I don't care. And so I look back at pictures now, and I'm like, why did you even get on stage? But I did bikini and figure. Um, Figure, I think there was only 3 of us in my height class and I won it. So I thought, hey, that's pretty cool. And then bikini, I got second out of like 6. So I did well, even though I look back and I'm like, you shouldn't have even been on stage. But everybody, everybody has to start somewhere. You got to just dip your toe in just to see how much you like it. So I did figure and bikini. And then my second show, also in 2018, was both figure and bikini. I placed third in bikini and first in figure, and that's when I decided I was gonna stick with figure. I I'm 5'10", 5'9.5", so I have a very broad body anyways. So bikini just doesn't suit me well enough. Like I just can't get that slender look because I'm big boned.
I'm 6'3", so I know exactly what you're talking about when it comes to, height and working out, where I mean, we got a little bit more room to work with. Our muscle bellies are a little bit, longer that, you got to really fill out. So yeah, I cannot tell you how many times, I hate sometimes having guests on here that are like 5 feet tall and they're all just completely shredded. And it's like, well, yeah, because you got a little bit less to work with. But yeah, and I've always found that fascinating too, where once you get to pro, I mean, they don't even have height classes. So I mean, you could be standing next to someone who's 5 feet tall, and it's like, how do you judge someone who's almost 5'10" as opposed to someone who's 5 feet tall standing next to each other? I mean, that's a
Yeah, I know.
completely different human being, really. I mean, I've never quite understood that. But when you were getting started in the gym, I always like to point out, if you were to walk into that gym of 100 people, and there's 100 different ways as to how they got into shape, because I mean, no one's going to find those same results as someone else. And that's one thing that I love to ask with this question is, I mean, if you were to walk up to someone and say, hey, what did you train for that body part? It looks amazing. What worked best for them isn't going to work as good for you. And what was that journey like for you, sort of figuring out what works best for your body specifically? Because it is just so much trial and error. And I think that's one thing that prevents people from advancing a lot in this lifestyle, is that they just give up after a while.
So when I started, I think because I didn't know a whole lot about it, I think I always thought the more reps, the better. I'm going to do 20 lateral raises and it's or 30 and it's going to be better. But then I realized you don't have to do so many reps. You can do more weight and you can build more by doing more weight. But again, trial and error. And also, my shoulders are one of the slowest things to grow besides my quads. And that again, because of our long muscles, and it's just harder to put on size. So I'd always heard, and just following people on Instagram, lateral raises, and so I was doing them, just crazy doing them. But I was getting like more of like I didn't have a round. It was just kind of skinny and shredded. And so I started playing around with things on my own. Arnold press, which there are some things that I've heard negative about Arnold press, but they worked for me because I would push myself with them. And so really now I've learned just after time, it's not really about even the exercise that you're doing, it's what intensity you put behind it and that mind muscle connection.
Absolutely. And I mean, that is just something that I really think needs to be spread more, is that, yeah, the intensity. And because we see, I mean, one thing that a lot of people get wrong with bodybuilders too is that they just associate them with powerlifting, where it's like, no, these aren't going to be people that are going to, be putting up like 400-pound bench presses, or they're not going to be like going for the max. They go for the aesthetic look of it, which is another thing that I just think people do not understand. But I love to talk genetics on this podcast because, I mean, with everyone on social media these days, I hear it all the time, and it just makes me angry. Is everyone, oh my God, I want his arms, I want her abs, I want their back. I just want to shake that person down and be like, you do not understand what that took for that person to get to that. Some people are just born genetic freaks. Let's be honest. I've had some people that basically have 12 packs when they were born, and I'm just like, okay, that's not even fair. But whenever someone first gets started in the gym, they always have that one body part that really, really takes off, that they don't have to train as much. And they have that one body part that just drags behind it. They have to train to oblivion to get to catch up to them. I mean, I'll give you mine first. My back, just because I had jobs all throughout college where, I was lifting and loading boxes into trucks, and, you either got a really nice back or you quit. But being 6'3", I mean, my legs and my lower body are just absolutely shot, where I could train my legs into oblivion. I could inject pure muscle in my legs. I always tell people, and, they wouldn't gain an ounce. Don't even get me started on calves. That's the number one pet peeve, because that's the most genetic thing there is. But what were those body parts for you when you were getting started?
Yeah. So you said somebody who's born with abs. My dad used to tell me you were born with abs. So I've always had really good abs. Even when I called myself skinny fat, I had abs. Um, in off season right now, eating 2,400 calories a day, they might not be so pretty, but trying to put on some weight. So I would say probably my biceps, which is a weird thing for a girl, but My back really didn't start taking off till this off season. Like I say, it literally grows every week. I take new pictures and I'm like, oh my gosh, my back. So the more effort and years and time you put into a body part or building muscle, that's when you start to see a difference. And I'm just waiting for my legs to catch up. But but yeah, I think my biceps probably because my shoulders and my back literally just started taking off.
Well, you said biceps, so you got to give us a front. You got to give us a front double bi. Let's do the obligatory thing because you said, okay, just hold that for a second because that's just ridiculous. Everyone, I mean, we need to. Yep, some people are just born blessed and born
Yeah.
lucky. Yeah, I guess, but yeah. So that's awesome. And again, I love asking that question because everyone's answers are different, and it really just shows that yeah, it's going to be different for other people. But you were talking about time under tension. That's one thing that I think really differentiates, just the average lifter from someone who really take things seriously, because that's the one thing that, I mean, is a difference maker for so many people. And I always like to pretend that I was living under a rock and I never heard of that before, even though I've, known this for forever and heard it about 400 times. How would you specifically describe time under tension if someone were to walk up to you and ask you what it was?
Oh, let's see. So I guess for everybody does it differently. So I guess for me specifically, let's say lat pull downs. Um, I'm going to start off as like a warm up with 15 to 20 reps of a weight I can do 15 or 20 reps of. And I'm going to do 5 sets and I'm going to keep this all together. I'm not going to superset this. This is just going to be one set of all lat pull downs. So basically, the whole entire time, I'm keeping those lats engaged, time under tension. So until I get to that fifth set where I'm going to try to do the heaviest as possible for at least 6 reps. Again, so like we're building, but we're keeping the tension on that one specific body part.
Yeah. Well, and one thing that people don't understand too is that you could develop a nice time under tension for one body part. Doesn't mean it's going to work for everything else. Like you could develop it for shoulders. That doesn't even mean your biceps are going to work, or doesn't even mean your forearms could work. And especially lower body. I mean, that's a whole different thing where I did one time under tension leg workout and I woke up the next morning and I took 3 steps out of the bed and I almost fell over. So I was like, yeah, I might not ever want to do that again. But how long into your journey do you think that you really developed that nice overall time under tension? Because like we said, I mean, that one body part, I mean, doesn't mean you're going to be good at everything else in time under tension.
Um, I would really say this past summer 2020. So when COVID started, the gyms closed. I had to set up a gym on my back porch, and it like forced me to do things that I was uncomfortable with because I only had 2 sets of dumbbells. We rented some equipment from a CrossFit gym, so we had like a squat rack, a squat bar. We had maybe 225s and 245s, so I had to use what I had, and sometimes it was heavy as crap. Like, I mean, it was way too much weight for me, but it really pushed me to realize that I'm capable of more than I think I am. So now that the gyms are back open, so I would say this past summer when I was in prep, like it really it really kind of opened up my eyes that you can do a lot more. I was scared. I was scared to put that weight or pick that weight up. So yeah, I don't like squats though. I don't do very many squats.
Yeah, well, welcome to the club. I mean, yeah, let's be honest. When we're this tall, squats are not. You're not designed. They're designed for shorter people. Where we're at when they go to like, yeah, you got to be like sitting on the toilet when you squat down. It's like, yeah, for us that's a little bit harder because just the legs and everything. But what does a leg day work look like for you? Because I'm willing to ask anyone that's on this podcast because I'm just taking everyone's advice and trying it, and especially being that you're on the taller side. Like if I had like I said, the 5 footers on the podcast, and I'm asking them what their leg workout looks like, it's going to be a little bit different for me. But what does a leg day look like for you?
Yeah. So I start with probably as a warm up, but a working set. Leg extensions. I do individual leg extensions. I start with a low weight, high reps, all the way down to my fifth set. Might be 6 to 8 reps, as heavy as I can possibly go. So that kind of opens up all the blood, gets the blood flowing. I like the split squats on the Smith machine. Those are good. So keeping the tension on the quad, never straightening out your leg, just keeping that tension on there. Hack squats, I really love hack squats, and I made it a goal this year that I would be able to do 3 plates on each side. And I did 2 Mondays ago and tweaked my back. So that's the only thing I don't like about hack squats because to truly do a hack squat, you need to get low, and it kills my lower back. But I did meet my goal, so that was one of the things. The other thing, and a lot of people think I'm crazy when I say this, but at the end of quad day and hamstring day, step ups on a bench, no weights, 20 reps each leg 3 times, have, I swear they've made my quads bigger. And it's that there's no weight involved. It's all body weight. But I swear by 'em.
That just made my legs shake a little bit, just even hearing you say doing step ups after a class. I mean, yeah, there are times where I
Yeah,
have
at
trouble
the
making.
end of your
Yeah,
workout.
I have trouble making it up like my 8 stairs that I got to make from like my basement to my kitchen, basically after a leg day. So yeah, that's hey, more power to you for doing that. But one of the big things that I mean, it's talked about a little bit on Instagram and stuff, but it needs to be talked about a little bit more is the nutrition because that is 80 to 90% of this lifestyle is that, and I still have friends who, God bless them, they still think that they can go at Burger King, like 3 or 4 times a week. And, oh, yeah, as long as I, work out all the time, I'll be fine. It's like, well, yeah, because we're 25 now. Call me in 10 years and then see how that's working for you. They're just lucky because they might have better genetics. But what were some of the bigger nutritional changes that you made when you were first getting started in this lifestyle?
Yeah, so I didn't know anything about, like, I knew what a diet was, obviously. Everybody knows what a diet, but I didn't know what a bodybuilding diet was because again, I thought I didn't even know what bodybuilding was when I started. I love hearing stories about these women who like grew up with their dad and their dads knew all this stuff. And I had no clue, absolutely no clue. So when I started, I didn't really have a coach. I didn't even know to have a coach. I just had some people guide me that had been in the business before. And so it was literally the old school chicken, rice, broccoli. Yeah. And I was like, this sucks. So then when I hired a coach, and my first coach was Tiffany Chandler, she's a fitness pro, and she's from Opelika, Alabama. So she was my first coach, and it was still kind of a generic diet, the basics, but it was better. Like I needed that structure to be able to follow something. So I learned from that. And then I actually did my own prep for my first 3 national shows where I placed third, fourth, and fifth. So I did really well. But the funny thing is when you do your own prep, you don't have any accountability. So I thought, I did a lot of research and I followed a lot of people and I listened to a lot of YouTubes and podcasts. And I thought, the pump up backstage, you can have candy, you see all these people drinking honey and all this stuff. And so my every show I would have peanut M&Ms and almond joys. And I obviously it didn't hurt me because I did well. But then I decided, what would it be like if I had a real coach that was telling me what to do each time? So that's when I hired Autumn Cleveland. And she's a figure pro.
She's a
And
big name. I hope everyone in our audience knows who she is. Yeah, because she's a big name. Yeah.
she's awesome. I love her to death. So I hired her, and I thought it was so funny because I was like, "This is what I did prior: peanut M&Ms and almond joy." She was like, "Well, you're not getting that." I was like, "Dang it, I tried." So no, I think the nutrition is 90%. Like, yes, you've got to work out, you've got to do your cardio, but if you're not hitting your nutrition and you're not being honest about what you're eating, and not, if you do cheat, being honest about cheating, things like that, then you won't make it in this sport.
Oh yeah, I mean that's what makes it even harder for the trainers too, because I hear so many times where even with clients, not even with bodybuilders, where they lie about they didn't cheat, and then they're like, oh, I'm not losing weight. What's wrong with you? Like you must have the wrong problem. Where it's like, yeah, well, you had about 4 or 5 cheat meals last week, so that might really come down to factors. So yeah, honesty is a huge thing in this sport too when it comes to at least the nutrition part of it, because yeah, that is just vastly so important. But the most important thing in this lifestyle, I would have never guessed before I started this podcast, even though I had a familiar knowledge with bodybuilding ahead of time, but is that for so many of these bodybuilders, posing is the hardest thing for them. It's harder than your nutrition. It's harder than your working out. I mean, I would have never guessed it in a million years, but I compare it now to being a perfect driver, where you can be a great driver. You can never be a perfect driver. You can be a great poser. You can never be a perfect poser. It's always ever evolving. What is your journey with posing been like since you have competed in all 3 of the divisions?
So funny. I look back to those first 2 shows, and I was literally like, the one of them, my hands were like literally poking out like this, and my feedback was, work on your hands. So I didn't have, like I said, I didn't have a posing coach. I was literally learning from YouTube. Until I hired Autumn, I did not know how to pose. I didn't know how to do a lat spread for a year. Like I went into my first 2 shows unable to do a lat spread. I looked like a bird trying to stick out its wings. Like it was awful. So again, shout out to Autumn because if anybody knows her, one of her best traits is her posing. And now I have her as my coach and my posing coach. So it has completely changed my look. Now, figure posing is a lot easier than physique. And when I did physique when I won my pro card, this was literally 3 weeks before the show. Me and Autumn just said, let's just try it and see what happens. Because I want like I've been in prep for 31 weeks. I was like, dude, if I don't get my pro card, I wasn't gonna quit. But I was like, this is this is it. I was actually gonna go to the next show if I didn't get it, which was in the one in Orlando. But I was like, I said, let's think about this. If I do physique and figure, that's they were top two get pro cards. I was like, that's four chances at a pro card. And of course, it's expensive to enter them, but I was like, I don't even care. She was like, well, you have to do a routine, and I was like, oh crap. And so we had 3 weeks to put together a routine. Um, and I used zombies, the music zombie, which it turned out really good. I did not go in there expecting to win physique at all. No way in the world. When I when I went up there and I came back off, the posing was so hard. Like I was so out of breath. But my husband said, "You just won." And I was like, "No." I was like, I was up against women who have been doing this for years. No. He's like, "You just won your pro card." And I was like, "No, I didn't. I don't win my pro card until I win it in figure." Because figure is my that if I didn't win it in figure, then what's the point in competing in figure in the pros? So, anyways, wasn't expecting that, but the posing, I remember sitting backstage with two of the girls, and I said, "Wait, they're not doing it to their music." And she was like, "No, you have to go up there and do it to the stage music first for prejudging, and then if you make it to finals, then you get to do your music." And I was like, "So I just have to make something up?" And she was like, "Well, you should have had something prepared." And I was like, "Oh crap." So I literally made up my routine for prejudging. It was a mess, but I mean, like not the routine, but just my mind.
That is, yeah. How you're able to get your pro card after only three weeks of posing? Because most of the time I hear that, I just cringe and I'm like, oh my god, you poor thing, like waiting 3 weeks. But that is incredible, and that is, yeah, that is just such a great story. But you mentioned flaring your lats is one thing that really struggled with in figure, and that's the number one thing with figure competitors. What do you think was the one thing that really broke through to you on how to finally be able to do that? Because for some people, I mean, they're either born with it where they can just flare their lats, and they're a select few, but other than that, they're like you, where it takes a year, sometimes even longer than that, to even get them to go.
Yeah. So my husband, he would get frustrated with me, but he would get behind me and he would like get his hands like this and he was like flare them and he would just keep doing it. And just every day he would just keep doing it. Also, you hold a clothes basket. I don't know if I can stand up and you still see me, but you hold a clothes basket and you hold it like this and then you pick it up and like do it while you're flaring your lats. That was something Tiffany taught me. Um, and then the other thing that my our friend Brian taught me is after every back movement, stretch out like this. Just stretch them out. And so eventually all of that, I guess, was made it where I could do it. I don't know.
Those are some good tips. But yeah, honestly, after doing some of my back workouts, you would never catch me just hunched over like this or whatever like that. I mean, I would be,
I still do it.
oh,
I still do
I
it.
would be dead. Yeah, that's just, yeah. I mean, but that's, yeah, that is definitely great advice. And everyone who's like looking for how to flare their lats, I highly suggest that you at least do some of those things. But now, I mean, what was that moment like when they called your name and you realized, oh my god, I'm a pro now, not just in one division, but in two divisions?
Yeah. So when they called it, because, okay, so Autumn's coach is Shane Hughley. So I'm sure you've heard of him. He was at the show because Autumn couldn't come. And so he had checked me that morning. He had told me some little tips to try. And I heard him when I was up there on stage, I heard him say, spread them. He was talking about the outer thighs because I don't have large quads. So he was, or the outer quads. So he was saying in my back pose, make sure I spread my quads as far as I can so they look bigger. And I heard him say that. And when I heard him, it like dinged in my head that I might win this. And I don't know why that made that happen, but then when I came off and him and my husband were backstage or back down in the tent, um, I was like, they were both like, you won. And I was like, no. So I didn't feel like I had won because it was physique. Now, figure had a lot more girls in it. And I was like, And they moved me to the middle and then they moved me back. And so then I was like, I think somebody beat me. I might have got second. So the whole day I thought I got second. And to me, second wasn't good enough. Even though it was a pro card, it wasn't good enough. So when they called me in figure, if you go watch the video, I literally dropped to the like I dropped because I couldn't believe that I just won. Like I was so excited because 10 weeks prior to that I did North Americans and got second. So I missed it by one. Now my friend, who's one of my really good friends, Trish, won. So I was super happy, but I was also like, crap, I gotta go do this again. So no, it was very overwhelming. Like I wanted to celebrate, but then again, I was like still in shock. It's a weird feeling.
Yeah, I mean that is just incredible. And yeah, I can't really picture what that would be like for me because I always did team sports. So when it's just all individualized and you put all that hard work in for it, I mean, it must be amazing. But a myth and stereotype that I love to talk about on this podcast is that so many people just don't understand that look that you present on stage is not a sustainable look. You're not going to be able to look that way 365 days out of the year. And I mean, I think it's a lot because of shows like Biggest Loser where people go on and they lose hundreds of pounds and some of them are able to keep the weight off. So then people look at shows like that and they just assume, oh, hey, these bodybuilders work even harder than those contestants. They must be able to maintain that shape just because, I think that whenever people lose weight, they always can maintain it, but they just don't understand with all the manipulation that you've done to your bodies, whether it's, the carbs or your water, just all the things that go into the sport, you're not going to be able to maintain that look. What was that like for you when you first realized that, like, hey, this look that I present on stage, it's not sustainable. I'm going to have to put on weight. And has it gotten easier for you as your career has gone on to accept that fact?
So the I guess the funny thing is I never had an off season until now. So I took like I don't consider I think I had like 3 months that I didn't prep. Um, but that was it. So this has been my first. So November 12th was the show, and we're what March 2nd. So this has been my first off season. I'm taking this entire year off to grow because I'm not going to go to a pro show and just get top 10. Like I want to know that I can do really well. So I'm going to take this year off and probably do spring 2022 as my pro debut. So I'm kind of excited to see what's going to be like once I actually I mean, I'm 182 pounds right now. So I have put on some weight, but like it's been, I think I've put on a lot of muscle and I have learned that I'm pretty genetically blessed with putting on muscle quickly. So, I don't know. I'm excited to see like once I do get all this fluff and the fun part of growing, um, and then once we start kind of shedding that, like to see what's under there, because this is really my first true off season.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, talking about weight, I mean, I'm at like 215, but like I'm one of the weirdest people where I'll fluctuate. Like one morning I'll wake up and I'm like 212, and then by the end of the day I'll be like 218, and then I'll do like the same opposites. Like I am just a freak like that. But let's be honest, most of the weight that I put on has not been that much muscle just because of coronavirus and staying inside. So I've been getting on the treadmill the last couple of weeks, and I've already lost I think like 10 pounds, but I'm starting to work out again now and get that because I took like 2 months off, especially during the holidays. And everyone was getting sick and stuff, but yeah, that's amazing. And yeah, and I always tell out on top of that, you gotta, it's just like starting your own business. You gotta spend money if you want to make money. You gotta put on what weight if you want to put on muscle. I mean, unfortunately, those two just go hand in hand. But we're talking about coronavirus. I mean, like you said, you had to do your own prep at home. And how did you deal with all that mentally? Because I mean, this is just everything that went down last year is just so fascinating. And, just with all the gyms closed. And I mean, now they're open up probably where you are and they're just about to open up here. But how did you deal with all that, especially being in a prep where, I mean, it's like with bodybuilders, I mean, as soon as your gym's closed, I mean, those are your drugs basically is the gym. The gym is your drug. So, I mean, it's like without that, I was like, God, it's going to be interesting how these people are going to get along.
Yeah, so that's what I was saying. We called a buddy, or my husband called a buddy of his, and he owns a CrossFit gym, and it was closed. So he was like, "Hey, can we rent out some of your equipment?" And so for I think it was 6 weeks, it was like $75. He only charges 70. We went and picked up whatever we wanted from his CrossFit gym. We just took a trailer over there, and we literally set it up on the back porch in the freaking hot sun, no shade. I'd have to uncover it and cover it with tarps every day so that if it rained, it didn't ruin his stuff. But I really worked out so hard out there. But I think it's because it's all you have. But like I actually just last night I was looking back at pictures of this time last year, and it was a little bit later than this that I think it was like the 12th or 13th that the gyms closed. But I was looking back and I was like, dang, I was dripping sweat. I was posting my workouts. Um, I was killing it. I was doing hit workouts in the morning because I didn't have a treadmill and a bike at that time. And no, you couldn't find one anywhere. And so I was doing hit workouts in the morning. I was doing my workouts either during my lunch break or in the afternoons. And I don't know, I killed it at that time. So, like, to me, I was prepping for a show in June, which got canceled, and then July, which got canceled, and then August, which got canceled, which is why my prep was so long, and then finally competed September 3rd. So, anyways, I don't know. I pushed. Like, my husband hated it. He's like, I do not like this. He likes to go to a gym, but I actually kind of liked it.
Oh, you could never catch me working out in that hot sun. I mean, I've went on bike rides before when it's like 80, 90 degrees up on here. Yeah, there's no way. I mean, I just can't do it. The only time I ever liked the warm weather was when I was pitching in baseball, just because I would sweat so much that like the ball would become like all watery sometimes and stuff like that. And then you could just throw junk pitches all the time because the ball would just move naturally. So, and then what's the ump gonna say? It's like don't sweat. So it's like, yeah. So that's the only time I really enjoyed it. But yeah, that is just intense. But especially, since you have it behind you, and I mean, cardio is the bane of my existence. I hate it more than life itself. Or, I mean, when I say cardio, I mean like actually running. So, like the cardio that I do right now is I just walk on a treadmill for like 80 minutes, and I'll get like 7 miles in and burn like 900 calories or whatever. And it's just a fast walk basically. Like I don't do the running just because I just hate it. But what is your relationship like with cardio? Because I mean, unfortunately, when you get into bodybuilding, that is something that you do have to adjust to.
I actually love cardio. Like, love it. I call myself the cardio bunny because, um, like, I I can't not get up and do cardio every morning. Even right now, I get up and do even so basically that little bike behind me, I just turn it all the way down so I'm really not getting a workout, but it's just movement. Like, I have to get up. It like wakes me up. It's part of my daily routine.
Oh my god. Yeah, that is yeah. I mean, hey, that's great that you have that because I mean, you're going to have one of the healthiest hearts of all time just because of that, but how do you keep yourself entertained when you're on the that's the one thing I struggle with where I watch movies, but then there's times when I
I was
run
gonna
out of
say,
movies to watch. I run out of movies to watch and then, I usually go with like 2 or 3 weeks then without cardio and I wait for more movies to come up, but how do you keep yourself entertained that for that long?
I listen to Fuad's podcast and Justin Mahaley's. And which I was listening to yours the other day, which prompted me to reach out to you.
Oh my god. Yeah. So yeah, that's awesome because yeah, I'm glad that you listened to that because yeah, I mean, anything to help people, get them through those dark cardio times because yeah, I mean, there are times too where like if I go on for like 100 minutes, it's got to be at least a 100-minute long movie because I don't want to have it be like an 80-minute movie where then I have 20 minutes of just watching regular. I'm a huge stickler with that kind of stuff, so I don't want to get too much into that because it's just depressing me enough just talking about cardio. Where I mean, yeah, and I'll even do some later today. I'm dreading the fact, but one thing that isn't talked about as much, I don't even know if it's talked about at all. It's the most important thing when it comes to this lifestyle, and I don't care what anyone says. It's sleep. And if anyone disagrees with me on that, I tell them go pull an all nighter and then go and try to work out and see what happens. Did that in college twice, and both times I lasted about halfway through, and I said, "Screw this! I'm going back and I'm going to sleep." What is your relationship with sleep like? Because I mean, so many people it differs for them. Like I'm more of a night owl, so getting up to do this at 10:30 that was a struggle for me. But I did it. I got up because I had chores to do ahead of time too. So I was up at like 8 o'clock, and I was like, "Oh God, this is," because I was in bed at like 2 last night, but that's like my normal go to bed time. But what does your sleep schedule look like? And is there anything that you do to help you know get that proper amount of sleep, especially being a mom too, where I mean your sleep is already going to be kind of screwed to begin with?
So when I'm in prep, I don't sleep very well. I don't know if it's just the excitement. I don't know, but I don't sleep well. But now that I'm not in prep, I have trouble getting up. So I do go to bed at like 9 every night. So I'm one of those that's sitting on the couch like trying to keep my eyes open. So I do get up around like 5:45, 5:50 every morning because I have to get ready. I have to do my cardio. I have to take my kids to school and I have to start work at 6 and then take them to school and then get back on to start work. So um yeah, I don't have any trouble sleeping except at like the 9 weeks out mark and on in prep. And I use Revive Calm. They have these pills that you can take that those seem to help a little bit when I have trouble.
Which I love that you brought up 5:45 because I moved back in with my parents due to COVID, and I'm still there, so they know that if because they get up around like 5 o'clock too, but they know if I come downstairs at like 5:30, that means that I just hadn't slept all night and I just been like editing podcasts or doing stuff. So then I basically, I tell them like I'm gonna get as much work as I can until about noon, and I'm gonna fall asleep and I'm gonna take like a 2 or 3 hour nap, and then I'm gonna get up. And when I say nap, it's not really like I mean, I'm one of those people where I can't naturally nap if I've slept before that, but then when I've gone sleepless, I can nap like a pro. So then I normally just do that. But yeah, I mean, sleep, everyone. Yeah, you got to get that proper amount. But I mean, also being that you are a mom, and I mean, being a mom, that's a full time job in and of itself. And you also have a real job on top of that. And you do this. I mean, it's like you have a 3 job career. How are you able to time wise to balance all this? Because I mean, I struggle enough with just doing this podcast in my regular job and then working out every once in a while. But I at times feel like I'm going to go crazy. So how do you deal with all this?
Yeah, and I have and I train online clients part time too, so it's busy. I don't know how I manage it all. Luckily, I have really well behaved kids, and they're very self sufficient. Like, and people think I'm crazy, but they really are. Like, they're so good. They're very. My little girl is 10, and she helps me so much. And my work is I work from home full time, so and they're flexible. Like when I need to go get my kids, when I need to take my kids, they know that we don't have school buses here, so they know I have to leave. Usually I can either do the gym on like a lunch break, or I just wait till after I get the kids every day and take them with me. I'm usually home by 6 every night, getting supper ready. So it's really luckily I'm very lucky that I have a work from home job. Otherwise, it would be very difficult.
Well, and what was their experience like with COVID? Because I mean, like we talk about as adults what it is, but I couldn't imagine being like a kid in school and dealing with all this. What has their experience during this whole pandemic been like?
Yeah, so electronics were a big part of their life. Because when they were home in March, April, May, well, throughout the entire summer, I had to work. So it was a lot of TV and YouTube and iPads and Nintendo Switches. Unfortunately, that's terrible, momming.
Hey, so are they back in like actual like face to face
Yeah.
classes or doing? Okay, that's yeah. Because I've heard some people are still doing that virtual thing, but yeah, that's all. And lastly, with the kids, I mean, how important is it for you to set that positive example to just show them that like, hey, you can be in shape, you can no matter what your age or what your circumstances, because there have been studies that have found that the kids that have healthy and fit parents are vastly more likely to be in shape later on in life. How important is it for you to set that positive image so that they can look up and say, like, hey, I can be in shape no matter what?
Yeah. So just I would say just in like the past few months, my daughter, the oldest one, has wanted to do some things in the gym, and I definitely don't push her to do it. She's very skinny, just like I was when I was little. But she's so cute. She's doing like squats with like 5 pound weights on each side. And the other day she had the machine lat pull down where you can do one at a time, and she put on 5 pounds, and she did a set, and then she put on 5 more pounds, and she did a set. It was really cute. So I don't push her to do it, but if they want to come in there and do a little something, I encourage it. And if you look at my Instagram, there's some videos of like me and the kids doing like bicep curls together and just things like that. Like the boys are younger; they're 7 and 9, so they're more into their Nintendo Switches, and they don't care about the gym.
Oh my god, I remember that age. Just yeah, that age when all that matters was really video games. I miss it, but life goes on. But I mean, a question that I love to ask, every trainer that's on here is that especially during this day and age where people seem to have a little bit more free time just because of COVID and they don't have to be going out as much. A lot of times, the biggest excuse that trainers hear is like, oh, I want to get in shape, I just don't have the time. And it's like, well, if you have that excuse now, I want to know what's going on in your life. But if someone were to walk up to you now and say, like, Mandy, I want to get in better shape. It's just that I don't know how to because let's be honest, everyone wants to get in better shape, but most people just lack the knowledge. That's what keeps them behind. What advice would you give for them just to get started? Because, I always believe that, if once you take that first step in the gym, it's almost impossible to take that to walk out of it without getting a workout in.
Yeah, well. That's a good advice right there. Get up and go. Just go to the gym because once you're there, you're going to do something. You're not going to waste that trip to the gym. But I do have clients that were like, I just didn't have time today. And I'm like, what was your day like? Well, I worked 12 hours. Then I got home. I had to take my kid to ball. Totally get that. I get it. But when you almost have to prepare a little bit ahead. So like I always look at my calendar the day before or the week before and say, okay, if I'm not going to be able to go to the gym when I pick the kids up from school, then I need to block out an hour lunch break so that I can go on my lunch break. So I block my calendar ahead of time for work so that I don't get any meetings and I go on my lunch break. You prioritize it. Like if you really want it, you prioritize it.
And that's really all I can say to people too is that you got to and as much as I hate to endorse it, if you haven't like done anything really healthy for a while, just go on a walk. I mean, that's the easiest thing you can do. Just to start do a couple of weeks just walking or do like a month or so and then you can get started on heavier things and it's just one thing to really get started at. But if someone were to walk up to you and say, Mandy, we made the decision you can change one thing about the health and fitness or just the bodybuilding lifestyle in general and everyone would go along with it, what would be one thing that you'd like to see changed?
Add more bagels.
I wish.
Just kidding. Let's see. One thing that would change. Maybe more specific. Okay, maybe better followed judging guidelines. Um, and what I mean by that is, you as competitors, we go and we read the criteria of what we should be as a figure competitor. But then you look at like who wins the show and they don't actually fit the criteria sometimes, or um, or you have like a top two, and one is completely different than the other, and it really just doesn't make sense sometimes.
Yeah. Well, and the fact that I like to say, if you do shows in back-to-back weeks, I mean, one week they might want you a little bit leaner, and then one week they might want you a little bit fuller, and it's like, yeah, good luck changing your body that much in the one week that it takes. So, yeah, I mean, it's just ever evolving in this sport. And if we were to talk to you a year from today, I mean, let's be honest, if we were to talk to you a year ago today, and you would have predicted that there would be a global pandemic, I would have bet my entire life savings against you. So it goes to show, how much we really know about the future. But in an ideal world, if we were to talk to you a year from today, where would you like to be at in your bodybuilding? Where would you like to be at just in your overall life? What are some goals that you'd like to have achieved?
A year from today, I will be in prep for my pro debut. And hopefully, let's see, March. So probably stepping on stage in about 4 weeks, getting at least a top five finish. I would love, they say speak it into existence. That's what you hear that all the time. I would love, love, love to say I'm going to go win my first pro show. But my goal is top five because it is very unrealistic that me as a one first time pro competitor stepping on stage who has not put their pro time in, because that's another thing about the judging. If you haven't been seen before, a lot of times you don't get that placement. So yes, I want to go. The reason I'm taking a year off is because I want to go and win, but I would love to get top five as well. So, anyways, so a year from today, I will be prepping for my pro debut.
Which is awesome. And I mean, because I don't even know if I've heard of anyone winning a pro show on their first try. Maybe like once or twice, but I haven't. Yeah, it's just hard because, like you said, the judges are so familiar with some of these competitors have been pros for like 20 years, and then it's really hard for that. But what is one body part that you are looking forward to growing the most in the years that we since we talk?
Quads.
Yep. Yep.
They've got to grow.
Yep.
Like they have to grow.
They have to. And are you thinking about figure or physique, or are you going to
Figure.
try figure? Yeah, I wasn't. Yeah, because for
I'm gonna
physique,
stay with figure.
yeah, because for physique you got to put on a lot more muscle and stuff like
Yeah.
that, and that's even more eating and all that hard work. That's just it's already hard enough as it is being a figure pro. But so, is there anyone that you'd like to give a shout out to before we wrap things up?
So I've already said her name several times, but my coach Autumn, she's awesome, and my husband, obviously, I don't have a whole lot of family support, so like he is my biggest closest supporter. Um, Here in Troy, there's a restaurant called Preston's. They provide all of my protein, so that has been a huge help the past year and a half. Literally prepping all my food for me. And my gym is Walt's Gym, and I'm so glad they're back open. The After the pandemic, the tornado that came through actually ripped the roof off, so we were out of a gym even when it reopened. So we were having to use like a local rec gym, which was not quite as built for bodybuilding. And my gym here now that it's back open is awesome. So yeah.
Well, now I gotta ask the most important question of all time, since you are in Alabama: Crimson Tide or Tigers?
Oh, Roll Tide.
Okay. One of those people, good God. Yeah, just enjoy all those national championships. Yeah, must be nice. Must be nice. I mean, but I got to get my one dig. I mean, I have pro sports teams to root for, so that's my only comeback. But still, yeah, that's awesome watching Alabama. Nick Saban's great, but yeah, I like watching the Iron Bowl every once. So you're in Troy. So is that where the University of Troy is? That's one of those schools. If I ever played like college football as a video game, like when I was younger, I'd be like, oh, University of Troy. I'd play as them every once in a while because they're like not that good at football. So I'd be like, oh yeah, I'd make them really good or something. So a little tangent there. But again, you guys, we cannot thank Mandy enough for coming on and sharing her story. And everyone, go and check out her Instagram. I'll leave a link down below. And buy her big world where you will get inspired to get off that couch and stop eating all those Twinkies. But again, Mandy, thank you so much for coming on and sharing your journey. I really appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.
Well, again, everyone, this is Ryan Johnson, DD on the spot, signing out. Have a great day, everyone.